Good morning. We're missing church today, obviously, because of this big snowstorm coming up, but I wanted to offer you just a short biblical reflection, maybe in place of a sermon this morning. And so I want you to think about this morning soul friendship. Do you have friends, or even just one friend, that you can just count on above anybody else for anything in life? And particularly, I want you to focus on the word soul, someone that just feels like you've connected with that person on a deep level, almost supernaturally. And again, maybe that's marriage, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's outside of your spouse. C.S. Lewis has a beautiful quote that says, friendship occurs when one person says to another person, I thought I was the only one who thought that, or who saw that, or who knew that. That's when friendship occurs, when your souls get knit together in a beautiful way. And that's one of God's greatest gifts to us, is friendship at the soul level. So the last couple of weeks in church, we've talked about divine friendship, how God and Jesus himself is our deepest first friendship. And then last week we talked about cross-cultural friendship, how we can be close friends even with people who are very different than us. But it just requires listening and learning and humility and all these sacrificial elements that make a true friendship, even across big differences. But I want to read just a short passage this morning about David and Jonathan in the Old Testament. This comes from 1 Samuel chapter 18, verses 1 through 5. So if you have a Bible, you're invited to turn there and read it along with me. And the beauty of a video is you can pause it right now as you wait to get there. So 1 Samuel chapter 18, David and Jonathan's friendship is what it says here. So Jonathan is the son of Saul, who was the first king of Israel, and David has already been anointed to be the next king of Israel. This is what it says. As soon as David finished speaking to Saul, the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. And Saul took him that day and would not let him return to his father's house. Then Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as his own soul. And Jonathan stripped himself of his robe that was on him and gave it to David, and his armor, and even his sword, and his bow, and his belt. And David went out and was successful wherever Saul sent him, so that Saul set him over the men of war. And this was good in the sight of all the people, and also in the sight of Saul's servants. You can see here just a quick, supernatural, divine, beautiful connection that God has made between David and Jonathan. And here's the important thing here. Jonathan was the son of Saul. So he was in line to be the next king, wasn't he? And yet what we see here beautifully from the beginning is that through the work of God, Jonathan humbled himself and saw David as the rightful next king that God had chosen, a man after God's own heart, as we learned chapters before. And Jonathan saw David and said, he's going to be the right king. And God knitted their souls together in a beautiful way to make that happen. And David obviously turned out to be one of the most important figures in the history of Israel, and then led to the coming of Jesus from his family. But here's just a couple of things I think that are important for us about soul friendships, things we can be looking for, things we can be doing for other people. First of all, this idea of their souls were knit together. What does that mean? One of the great travesties of this text that's been used in modern times is to somehow make the connection that this would be like a homosexual relationship between David and Jonathan. And there's just no warrant for that. And what it does is it undermines the beauty of same-sex friendships, just true friendships, male-to-male friendships, female-to-female friendships. And those are some of the greatest gifts in life, and they don't have to be sexual at all or any kind of romantic thing. And so the fact that their souls were knit together just shows a deep spiritual kinship grounded in a shared love for God and his calling for David and for Jonathan. And so this is just showing countercultural vulnerability among leaders, people who are not trying to fight against each other for power or outdo one another, They're laying down their lives for one another, and they were brought together in deep love. Wouldn't it be great to see our highest leaders in our country be friends with one another and lay down their lives for one another in a deep way, not out of a power grab, not out of just acquiescing to somebody, but out of true, what is the will of God? What is God's calling? And I'm going to lay down my life so that that person can be everything that God made them to be. That's what a true friendship is. And those things can change the world, as we talked about last week. Number two, again, connected to this, is Jonathan's sacrificial loyalty. So you see here that it says that after their souls were knit together, and it says Jonathan loved him as his own soul, right? Love your neighbor as yourself idea. In verse 3, it says they made a covenant, that Jonathan made a covenant with David, basically to say, like, I'm never going to try to overtake your throne, because he loved him of his own soul. And then verse 4, this is the important part. Jonathan stripped himself of his robe that was on him, gave it to David, and his armor, and even his sword and his bow and his belt. What is that? That's not just him taking off his stuff, right? And again, this is not sexual. This is not any kind of, homosexual thing that's going on here. What this is it's Jonathan giving everything he has to David in submission and sacrificial loyalty. That's what the second point is. He gives him everything, yielding position to God's anointed friend. True friendship seeks the flourishing of the other, not self-preservation. Number 3, as the story goes on in chapters 18, 19, and then 20 of 1 Samuel, you see some really hard things. You see Saul turn his back on David because of jealousy. And so, again, what's Jonathan going to do? Is he going to stick with his friend David that he made a covenant with? Or is he going to stick with his father, right? That's a tough balance here. Which one is he going to go with? And you see here that Jonathan sticks with soul friendship, with the covenant friendship, with the love friendship, with our souls are knitted together. Even deeper than a father, this friendship takes precedence because it's the will of God and it's his anointed. And so they honor the covenant through friendship and through hardship. And so as hard things happen, and even as death happens, they honor the covenant to the very end. And so the story comes to a tragic end, and at the end of chapter 20, and then into the end of 1 Samuel, where David sees the death of Saul and Jonathan, tragically. And so Jonathan literally lays down his life for the sake of God's will and his friendship with David. And if you're able to turn 2 Samuel chapter 1, verse 25, 26, you see David's response to this. Again, they're honoring the covenant through hardship. This is how David responds to the death of not only Jonathan, his friend, but also to Saul. He says, how the mighty have fallen in the midst of battle. And then verse 26, Jonathan lies slain on your high places. I am distressed for you, my brother Jonathan. Very pleasant have you been to me. Your love to me was extraordinary, surpassing the love of women, it says. So again, is this a homosexual thing? No. This is just showing that even more so than a marriage or the love of women or lust or anything sexual, David sees the love of a friend, a soul friend in Jonathan, a special friend who's been knitted together to him. He sees that as just such an extraordinary gift, and he's missing that. He's lamenting that's been taken away from him. But they honored that covenant to the end. I mean, you hear of covenants like this, especially like Tom Sawyer or Huckleberry Finn, like blood covenant. Like they cut blood, and this is like kind of an old timey idea. Like true friends like stick together, or like BFFs, or like my girls upstairs do best friend bracelets or necklaces with their friends, and it's a way of like showing a covenant, showing a connection. David and Jonathan had that on a soul level, and that's what's offered to us too, as believers in Jesus, as Christians, as brothers and sisters in Christ. We are offered beautiful soul friendships in the church, and that's why we meet week after week. And again, that's why we're missing it today, is like we're not going to be able to see each other today because of this massive snowstorm that's coming. But when we gather back together, it's an opportunity to build true soul friendships. Like again, you don't have to go through life fully alone. God has soul friendships in mind for each of us, ones that he wants to use to bless us, to encourage us, to challenge us, to teach us about the gospel, to teach us about sacrifice, to teach us about receiving love, just these greatest gifts that we get to experience only in the church. And so soul friendship is for the church. It's a gift that the Holy Spirit gives us as believers in Jesus. We can be spiritual companions who seek Jesus together, who counsel one another, and who hold each other to this high standard of faithfulness and love to Jesus above all else, just like David and Jonathan did in their context all those years ago. So I want to leave you with one final verse. And this goes from Proverbs chapter 18, verse 24. And again, the Proverbs are just these beautiful wisdom statements. And I pray this will encourage you today. Proverbs 18:24. A man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. And so, again, it's my encouragement to you, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, or someone who has a lot of friends or who doesn't have many friends at all. It's not about the amount of friends you have. It's not about how many connections you have or how many networking relationships you have or how many people you can go hang out with. It's not about that, because even that, it says a man of many companions may come to ruin. You might just be sheltering yourself by having a bunch of general friends. But it says there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. I have 2 brothers, and I am close to them, and I appreciate them and love them. But there can be a friend even closer. I have 2 girls who are upstairs who are best friends with one another. And yet even for them, there can be a friend that's even closer than them right now. And that's the same for us. Through belief in the resurrection and through our friendship with Jesus Christ, our brother and our friend, he knits us together with other believers, and we can become close soul friends with others, and just in a special way. And it's always a surprise. Again, surprise is one of our great values as a local church. Curiosity, community, and surprise. And one of the greatest surprises can just be, who does God bring into our life to be close friends with that we never would have thought? That just becomes a great encouragement to us. Someone who may be totally different than us and is going to teach us things that we never knew were even possible. But the biggest point is that they connect us not only to one another, but true soul friendship connects us to God, that pushes us towards faithfulness and to love and to understanding the good news of the gospel in a deeper way. So on this snow day, as we watch the Patriots and as we shovel snow and as we hunker down, stay warm, stay safe, enjoy some rest today as part of your Sabbath. But also, as we come back together next week and throughout the year, let's be looking for how God brings us together in soul, how he knits us together. And may we keep our eyes open to the surprising work of God for us. So may God bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you. May he give you his peace this week. I look forward to seeing you soon. After the snow clears, we will have the driveways shoveled in time for next week. God bless you. Take care.